Yeah, we can stand. Lord, thank you for bringing us all together here tonight, this evening, to discuss, deliberate, and decide on those items that are most important, critical to the city of Johnstown, the community of Johnstown. Thank you for our continued freedoms to hold our elections, our free, our fair, and our measured elections that took place throughout this great nation yesterday. Thank you for your continued guidance. Please continue to watch over all of our first responders, our military men and women, both home and abroad. In your name we pray. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first up is action on minutes from October 19th. They were distributed. Are there any additions or corrections?
I move to accept.
Okay, we have a motion to accept the minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Marvin seconded. Teresa, you want to call the roll?
Sure. Doug Lehner,
Yes.
Marvin Block,
Yes.
Ben Lee,
Yes.
Cheryl Robertson,
Yes.
Mayor Dutcher,
Yes.
Carol Van Beest.
Yes.
Okay, next up, and for all of those citizens who were joining us tonight, we are going to go into executive session next door so that we can hear from the law director. And then we'll be back. It shouldn't take very long. And if you'll just hang out with us, we'll get back to you.
Is he here?
He's
Phone.
going to be by
On
phone.
Okay.
And
So I guess I need a motion to,
Yes, and I would ask that we include Bailey and Jack as well,
okay,
and myself,
Teresa's
Okay.
supposed to go too.
and Teresa.
okay, that's fine. Somebody will make a motion.
I'll make a motion to enter into executive session with the law director to discuss imminent court action with members of council, Jim Leonard, Teresa Monroe, Bailey Klimchak, and Jack Ligon.
Second.
Then moved in second. Teresa, you want to call the roll?
Yes, Marvin Block,
Yes.
Ben Lee,
Yes.
Cheryl Robertson.
Yes.
Mayor Dutcher.
Yes.
Carol Van Beest.
Yes.
Doug Lehner.
Yes. Anyhow, we'll be back. Don't go away. Shouldn't be that long. Mhm.
Took a chunk.
Yeah, I know. But what choice do we have?
Oh,
Okay. Are we back on?
Sorry?
Are we back on?
Yep, we're back on.
We're back from executive session and we will continue with the agenda.
Yeah, I'll just make a note. It's 7:17.
Okay. Next up is citizen comments on matters not on the agenda. We invite anybody who would like to address us to step up to the microphone, tell us your name, your address, and we'd like to limit it to no more than 3 minutes and whoever would like to talk. Jim, you're first up. Maybe 4, maybe 5.
I hope not. Jim Hill, 49 Concord Court. I know where you were, but I have to ask the question anyway.
All right.
Anything new with the lawsuit before I get into what I want to say?
No.
Okay, all right, fine. I was hoping.
Depends on which one you're referring to, but no,
Oh.
none of the various lawsuits are
Okay.
there anything new?
As you know, I was here before asking for information, got information, went to school, got information. Kind of the same information, almost. I do want to preface what I'm going to say because I do want to stay unbiased. I'm not here to hammer. That's not my objective at all. But it may seem some of the things I may say or ask, I don't want you to perceive that. Our family had a problem. One of the kids with their kids with the school board made a decision. It did not go well. School officials did not help an awful lot to get it done. So I guess what I'm saying is I have a disappointment from the school side. I just say that only to let you know that this isn't necessarily a slam to you folks, but you do control the ball game. It is, you know, the lawsuit was entered with school, but you guys have the baseball, the bat, the bases, the field, and in some cases the rules. So I say that. So let me proceed on. The CRA with New River, has anything happened with that? Any conclusions?
It is in their attorney's hands and will be signed at the conclusion of the due diligence and the closing. So it has not been signed yet.
Good.
It has been approved by our council.
By council.
Yes.
And the school board was not involved
Correct.
in that. Okay. So they get
They get their statutory requirement.
statutory requirement. Okay. The township with the fire station. Was anything special done there as far as tap fees? Things of that.
Yes,
nature?
our agreement with the township was that they asked us to transfer their current taps to the new fire station. That will require, if the old building is ever used again, that they come and get new taps and pay the fees. And those fees would be 50% of what they would be entitled to, the 50% reduction that we give to other
capacity.
government entities.
For the capacity. That's
Yes.
for the fire suppression.
Yes.
Okay. What about Johnstown Point? Did they get anything?
No.
Anything special? They,
Nope.
No, we actually required them to loop. So they have 2 connections to our water line, not just one.
and New River will probably have the same, not necessarily looping, but.
Yeah, no concessions were made to
No
New River.
concessions there. Okay. The council did give the school special consideration 2015 with the new high school and the new elementary.
And in addition to that, I think there were concessions made when the new stadium was
Rebuilt.
rebuilt.
Yeah, I think there's 3 instances of concessions on our part.
Okay. Yeah.
in general.
I'm curious if anyone checked with any other entity or schools to see what their encounter.
No. And we also look at more ratepayer prices with other communities, but essentially we have to make our money to
Do it.
fit our system.
Mhm.
So the city of Newark has 50,000 residents. Their economy of scale is much larger.
Right, sure.
It's much simpler for them to get a lower price where it's not the same for us. So to answer your question directly, no, we did not.
Okay. And that goes including with mayors or city managers to get the feel that,
I didn't talk to any other city managers.
okay,
But our new rates were based upon an engineer's study
right.
that we
Yes.
Mhm.
contracted for to
Yes.
know how to base these amounts on.
I do understand that.
Mhm. And that was submitted November of 2020
That was submitted from the
from the engineers. CT
engineers
Engineering.
to you folks.
Mhm.
And it was
back in
done in
November.
public and done on the agenda, and then we adopted the new rate structure at that time.
You're talking about the capacity.
Capacity charges, yes.
Yes, the charges, but the fire suppression was in
Later,
June.
right.
Right, okay. Now, the school first requested the tap fees on June 8th. I got that from both parties. That's the earliest that I saw that the request came in for that. And both parties gave me that.
Okay.
Council. Ordinances 22, 2021 with an effective date of 6/15 and 29, 2021 with an effective date of 7/6. Basically, they're the same thing with just a small paragraph. They were both passed by emergency ordinance. What was the nature of the emergency?
I'd be a little hesitant. I think that's some of the things that we're going to be going through our lawsuit about. I understand your question, but
Okay, no, I understand that.
that could be interpreted. So I-
Yes,
I would ask we not answer your question,
okay.
and I'm no lawyer.
And it's obvious I've got it.
Sure.
So I understand that. That's fine. This is for my own benefit. Does council consider township, schools, park district, county, library, any other taxing authority in the same realm as businesses?
Don't understand your question. Jim.
Well, when it comes down to water taps, we're talking about water taps and sewer and things of that nature.
Wouldn't be eligible for the 50% reduction that we would give another government entity. If I'm understanding that right.
You're talking about the fire suppression?
No, just in general, a tap fee, we give them a 50% discount. If you're another government entity off what the fee would be if you're just regular business,
And a regular business gets 20%.
and they get a 20% reduction. So
So
Okay,
there is a
okay.
difference,
So there is a
there is a difference,
30%.
30%.
So you're saying tap fees for water sewer
Capacity fees.
capacity fees are set up that way?
Yeah.
The fire suppression?
Sorry. Capacity fees are the same for everybody.
Okay,
Fire suppression is the 20% for business, private, and 50% off for government bodies.
okay, before the taxing authorities. Okay, all right. So keep going. Now, the city is going to get money, hopefully from county commissioners to run line down to the, maybe not.
No.
Maybe not.
Okay. Oh, no.
It
It was
was,
a
would
good
ask me-
thought at the time. It was a good thought, but it never.
Well, it's still in conversation. We've applied for a $2.5 million grant from the state, but the county commissioners have now said we have to apply for their money, where before it was implied that it was going to be handed over to us.
It was a good idea.
It's a good idea, but I updated safety and service today. It doesn't look good because we're not going to pay Johnstown monies.
and
Right,
we have,
that's what
we have
I
said that
remember
to
saying
to the
that.
commissioners from the very first any discussion. That was it set out plain and simple. We're not taking Johnstown ratepayer money and paying for this.
Meeting 1, meeting 2, meeting 3, at least one email.
They have a right to change their mind.
Do.
And they
So do
do.
we.
And they do. Lastly, I believe the school did give you the full amount, so they could continue on with their
That's correct.
construction and things of that nature.
That's correct.
I don't know where this is going. I will say this, that, you're in receipt of the 237,000. I don't know, but it does not look good. It does not look good from a media point of view. If the Advocate gets it, chances are the Dispatch is going to get it. No one's going to win in this, in my opinion. And I don't know how council feels, but right now it seems like council feels you got the 237,000. Proceed on with Seraphos and proceed on with the court case. I think it's unfortunate. And if it's not within the realm of council to say, well, maybe we could do something. I know it was tried. It didn't work out. And I know personalities can get in the way. Or personality, one or the other or both, whatever. It's unfortunate. And I know I'm not, I told this to the school board, and I'll tell you, because I don't think I did, I'm not here to broker. I'm not. I just, as a concerned citizen, this is just really, really not good. And if there is a way of handling this, I certainly hope that both entities will find a way, that somebody will come up and say, let's see what we can do. But right now, it seems like it's at a stalemate, and I guess the courts will decide, and that's too bad. It's just not going to look good all the way around. I know there's a lot of people that don't understand. They don't get it. I heard the 94,000 was too much. Somebody else said, no, that's not a bad price. I don't know that they even know about the 237,000. So I just find it to be still, as I did, the last time I came, it's just not it's not a good thing.
One thing I want to point out to you, Jim, that I look at, I'm here for a little while yet, to protect the residents of Johnstown.
Mhm.
And we pay for all this water stuff.
Mhm.
There's a school district has people who do not live in the village and do not support our water system.
True.
So I look at it like that too. I want to protect the people here for what we pay for. And so to me, that came into play in some of this, because the school district is not just the residents in Johnstown.
True. But those residents that live outside the city do send their kids inside the city
They most certainly do.
to utilize the
They most certainly do,
services.
but they're not paying for the water in our system,
Mhm.
correct?
Or you can be like Pataskla and take in the whole township.
Yes, that's a possibility.
I'm kidding.
I know you are.
Can I,
No.
you too, Joe?
Again, out of respect for our lawsuit, I just be careful.
Yeah, I do understand that. And as I said, some of the things I did not say because I understand you don't want to necessarily talk about it. And I do find that if there is a way to take care of this, I do wish it could be taken care of.
I'd like to address you a little bit there, Jim. We didn't file the lawsuit. It was filed against us.
Yes,
And it's public knowledge that the one round, the judge ruled in our favor.
Right.
You're looking at a difference. What was the difference?
147,000, I think,
How much?
about 147,000, I think.
Okay, and they'll spend 30,000 on lawyers and stuff. How's that? gonna work?
142. Well, I think that's the biggest thing.
No, we didn't file a lawsuit, Jim.
No,
and I've had conversations about it,
Yes,
and I don't think that we should be the bad guy here. They filed a lawsuit, we answered it, and now they even made comments about the election and stuff, the president, the board.
I haven't heard that, but Marvin, you're correct about that. And it is the attorney fees and the court cost. When all is said and done. I read what the school had, and I read what Jim provided me. And I don't know whether they charge per word or per page, but I know they. Yeah. Okay, anyway, when you get down to it, it's $142,000 was the difference between originally the 95,000 and the 237,000.
And not once did they come back and try to negotiate. They brought a check over for Jim and give it to Jim, a sealed envelope for the lower amount.
Which I did not open.
He did not open. And they never come to, it was take it or leave it. They never come to negotiate with anybody. They just waited and they paid the full amount and then filed a lawsuit. They filed an injunction against us.
I will repeat what I said about personalities. And I would hope somewhere along the line that something could happen. If this body is very firm where they want to stand, then they have to be firm and just proceed on. And if they want to proceed the court and tie up attorneys, and whoever wins, whoever loses, if they have to pay the others attorney fees, it's just not good.
Why
It's
don't,
not good.
I spent 2 weeks researching property over there on Beach Road and Jug Street, all those properties that was bought over there.
Mhm.
Mr. Wexner bought. That was bought by the New Albany Company. And when it was originally bought, it was $23 million. The property values went way up. I researched that and got all the paperwork and turned it into the school board. And then Wexner or the New Albany Company turned around and sold Amazon site to Amazon for $22 million. That went on the tax duplicate. You can check it yourself on the auditor's website for $11 million. I asked them to challenge that. They never challenged it. They left all that tax money laying on the table. And I done all the research for them and took it to them or sent it, give it to Ruth Ann to give it to them. They didn't do anything about that, but then they sued Johnstown over a water tap, but they let all that money lay on the table. So go talk to the school board why they didn't investigate that. Why don't they sue New Albany Company? I mean, it was documented that that land transferred for $22 million. The auditor put it on the website for 11 million and the school board didn't challenge it.
Anyhow, not to turn this into a who did what to whom.
Yeah.
Any further?
No, no.
Thank you.
I
Appreciate your comments. We understand.
yes,
Can I add something, please?
Sure.
First, Mr. Hill, thank you for coming in. I appreciate when citizens come and voice your opinion. I did hear you say in your statement that you wish that someone would have come forward and tried to come to a resolution with council. Believe me, everyone sitting here, including Ms. Hendren, who's not here tonight, were under the same impression that you were. I can say that the agenda packets are sent to every school board member
Mhm.
well in advance, like they are to us. On June the 8th, there was absolutely nobody sitting in the audience. On June the 15th, there's absolutely nobody sitting in the audience. From the village, from the school board, no one. When we peered out here, there was no one, but you see these two tables. We too wish that somebody from the Johnstown Monroe School Board would have been here to actually work with us. That was our wishes. And with that, I'll just leave it right there.
I don't know. And I appreciate that, Doug. I do not know whether it's long past or whether there was a possibility that maybe something could have happened. The impression that it leaves, regardless of where it's going to end, the impression that it's going to leave, and 237,000, how could they do that to our poor schools? You know, our taxpayers, we're paying to the village, our tax. I understand all that. And as I said earlier, people do not understand. I didn't understand the first time I came here. I asked for information. I got it from Jim. I got a couple of telephone calls. I went over to the school board, asked them. I said, this doesn't look good. I'd like to have information. I went to the superintendent. He gave me information. We talked, you know. I have one more meeting, and that's to the school board. And I'm not trying to do anything, but I tell you, as a longtime citizen and worked hard for the schools, have done a lot of committees here, planning, charter, police advisory. No, I don't like this. I don't like it at all. And whoever's at fault, you know, usually you can point the finger at somebody and the thumb back to yourself. Do I think that? I don't know. You know, I've tried not to interject any opinions or anything. I just like for it to get away. That's what I like. I like for it just to go away. Proceed on. So, okay, thanks.
Thanks, Jim.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, we'll move on with our agenda. Thank you very much. Okay, next up, it's council committee reports. Planning and zoning met on the 26th of October. Bailey, are you gonna handle this one?
Planning and zoning considered a COA for a new structure off of US 62. That COA was approved. They then considered a preliminary plat for Concord Crossing East. There was no decision made on that preliminary plat. They will be hearing it again on November 9th. And they didn't have time that night to talk about zoning, but they're moving along pretty fast with the new zoning code. And so they'll be seeing more of that in the next few meetings as well.
Questions for Bailey? Anybody? If not, thank you very much. Safety and service met this evening. Ben, are you handling this one?
Yep. So safety and service, we went over several things in the report tonight that Jack is probably going to hit on, from street, sewer, and water. There's a crosswalk demonstration project that Bailey updated us on from LCATS, is that right? A part of the active transportation plan that the city passed last year, I believe. And moving forward with just some testing on bumping out some curbs near crosswalks and how that may affect traffic. Zero cost to the village. Couple weeks is what we're looking at testing that for several areas mainly in the downtown space. But voted 3-0 to move forward with continuing that conversation with Bailey and LCATS to where there'd probably a presentation or something coming up soon, but nothing would be actioned until the spring, and there would be more conversation in council about that. But very interesting that we'd be talking about that. We touched on the Hartford water line that Jim had already kind of discussed tonight. With the sidewalk replacement program, we're moving to January of 2022. We'll probably have a better idea of the budget at that point for 2022 and be at a point where we're updating our committee goals at that point as well. Other than that, I don't think, did I miss anything?
Questions for Ben?
I missed anything?
Okay. Finance Committee met on Monday of this week. And the next meeting will be another special meeting on November the 8th. I think that's at 5.
Yeah, we'll go. I asked if we can schedule that now because I got your response about your availability earlier. So 11 November 8th, which is a
Monday
Monday.
night.
If we can do a 5:15 start, I would appreciate that.
That's fine.
15.
Yeah. I think I got responses back from Jack and Dana and Chief Jim. I'm just assuming. I got to, if you're good. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Are you going to report or is Dana going to report? Who's leading this?
Doesn't matter to me if you want. You know what I mean? Okay. Mainly it was about the budget, but we talked about the asset control, asset value quotes from several companies that Dana's still sourcing out. That is a part of our movement from a village to a city. So I think we've narrowed down from 3 to 2, and we'll have a decision on that in the coming weeks. We approved to move forward with the bed tax ordinance. It's mainly the ordinance that Upper Arlington has codified right now that we're taking and kind of morphing into the Johnstown city piece, but we have definitions on tonight to define hotel motel, and then transient accommodations would be anything 4 units or less. Hotel motel would be 5 and above, and then assessing it 3% tax on those businesses, like most other municipalities do, and the county has a tax to that end. But we voted to move 3-0 in finance to move forward with. We reviewed the pieces, had a couple of questions for Yaz, but we should see that as an ordinance to review at the second meeting here is the hope. And then most of the rest of the conversation came down to the budget in terms of the funding of the projects that we have in front of us, some of the expenses, covering some of the negatives, which we have negatives in the budget to start with because we put everything on the table and just kind of pull things back as we prioritize what we can do with what we have. We have ordinance 46-2021, which is on tonight. That came out of the finance meeting, which is looking to be able to give all employees of the now city a $1,000 bonus or additional payment as a part of the ARPA funds from the COVID response from the last 1.5 years, 2 years. So that is something that we can entertain tonight and answer any questions or talk about. But appreciate Dana and Teresa for actioning that relatively quickly since we just had that conversation on Monday. And then really one of the other pieces, and I'll turn it over to Jim and Chief on this. We had conversations, as we always do, about movement, about staffing, about personnel, about anything that has to do with the budget. And one of the pieces that we did talk about was the police department, some of the staffing within the police department. So I know we've had some conversations lately, but wanted to put it to, because there have been some questions about some of those pieces, but wanted to put it to Chief and Jim about some of those items if you wanted to maybe discuss on those.
So, Mr. Lee, is this going to be in reference to the possibility of existing staff?
Right.
Right. So at this point, and I know we discussed it earlier with council with an executive session about the possibility of looking at dispatch and, the possibility of your consideration of basically dissolving dispatch in order to increase the amount of personnel being in the form of police officers added. With that said, currently we have only 2 dispatchers that are working from a staff of 5. It would be my plan within this to actually absorb those 2 existing employees within the staff structure here at Johnstown. So I wouldn't see that there would be layoffs, as far as that goes, creating the positions for those people, and then potentially adding a single officer in 2021 with actually a savings to the city at this point, and then the addition of an additional officer in 23.
Chief, I think it's important to discuss for the public's sake, the way in which 911 calls are routed in the event of an emergency.
So right now, if a citizen within the community was to dial 911, that call will never come to Johnstown because we're not equipped to handle those type of calls. So they immediately go to the 911 center that's located in Heath, Ohio. From here, the operator will take information. If they discover the actual emergency occurs within Johnstown, they're going to transfer it back over to the Johnstown Police Department at that point. The operator at that point is going to start obtaining the same exact information that was already given to the previous operator. And then once they obtain the location, then they'll send an officer. Now, what ends up happening here is there's about 90 seconds that gets wasted. So if you had an intruder in your home, there would be an additional 90 seconds that you would have to wait in order for that officer to respond to your residence with an emergency. So from a safety standpoint, it would make sense to use the 911 center like most municipalities within Lincoln County already use, and then build that into our structure. So my goal is to maintain services, do what I can to create better services for the community, and while maintaining those, increase staffing and try to do what I can to come at cost savings to the community.
I think you touched on it briefly. The proposal that you have out there isn't unique to Johnstown.
It is not. So we're one of two municipalities of this size left that actually have our own internal dispatching. So it's us and Granville. Everybody else within the county, with the exception of Heath, uses the 911 center. So that is Buckeye Lake, Utica, Pataskala, Newark. So you name it, Alexandria, well, they're soon to be, but Kirkersville, so on and so forth. So there's all these communities using these services.
Plus every single fire department.
And every fire department. And that's another issue that we run into, is that if there's historically, when I've worked at other organizations that had the 911 center built in within the police department always responds to non-responders. So if you have somebody that's in a medical emergency that requires a non-breather or needs an AED room, have it, officers typically have always beat fire personnel there. Just today, we had a situation in one of the communities here where there was a possible suicidal subject. The fire department went there and then they staged. We should have beat them there. I was the first responding person there. And when I got up to the medic, he basically told me, I don't understand why you didn't meet us here. Meaning that at that point, the 911 center only sent them and they did not contact our dispatch. But if we would have been with them originally, we would have went there. My officers would have beat them there. We would have neutralized the scene. And ultimately they had to wait for us to even go in, and they don't know if they have somebody that is actively trying to attempt to commit suicide, or what state that person's in. So it's vitally important to not only get the law enforcement in there, but to get those fire EMS in there to do that first aid on that person. And that is a very recent, a good example of how this transition would benefit the community.
So just to kind of contextualize that, so that proposal that is in front of finance and ultimately council at this point, it was kind of born out of necessity, but ultimately with respect to what has been proposed, it's not just about dollars and cents. You're looking at increased response time, a similar setup to other municipalities of similar, larger, smaller sizes within Licking County. There is a financial application to it, but what is also being considered is the addition of at least one more officer. So several pros that go along with this, but important to note that still within the consideration phase within the finance committee side with respect to the budget go forward.
Correct, Mr. Lee. And as we surge forward on this topic, it's important to, that obviously the choice is going to be within the hands of council. And it's important to know that if we decide not to go this way, then basically we still have dispatch. We're a city now, and it's my absolute belief that they're going to assemble and they're going to unionize, especially in the wake of this. And they're one of the lowest paid employees of the city. And when they do the fact finding, when it goes to arbitration and stuff, they're likely to get a decent amount of money because they're going to win some of these battles if and when they would unionize. And then as we move forward, it's if we want to keep dispatch, then we need to put those funds into dispatch, which means that we need to get dispatch up to speed. We need to pay the dispatchers better and stuff. So if we keep them, it's going to come at a more substantial cost than what we're looking at to begin with now.
A lot of what we've seen too from this move from village to city is it's not as if coffers open up for us. Usually things have become, as we've seen, looking at the budget, more expensive, more
Yes.
requirements, more expense, as we continue to operate on a 1% income tax. So just putting that out there as a part of what your discussion as well.
Questions for Ben, questions for Chief?
Did you ever get a cost from the sheriff's department or from the county?
I sure did, Mr. Block, and I'll tell you what we're looking at as far as that goes. Just let me pull up my notes. Now, my costs are going to be estimated, and the reason that my costs are going to be estimated is because the sheriff's office has not really defined to me what a dispatched call for service is, nor have they defined what the cost of a dispatch call for service is. It's my belief that Newark pays $10 per call, such a call. I've also heard the number $18 per call thrown out there. So if I were to look at my calls that required somebody picking up the phone saying I need a police officer, and then an officer being dispatched by that operator to the scene, at $10 a call, it would be $23,000 roughly. And the pretty much the exact count I come on that for my calls for the rest of the year would be $22,214. If I were looking at $18 per call, it would bring that cost to $41,785.20. If I were to include my traffic stops in there, meaning that when an officer gets on the radio and says, I'm going to make a traffic stop on a vehicle, if they were to consider that a dispatch call for service, that would be at $10 per call, that'd be $33,000, $434 even. And at $18 per call, that'd be $60,181.20. And what I did is I actually calculated that all into my figure. So at the most, it's my belief that to go to central dispatching annually would cost us $60,181.21. And at the least, it would cost us $23,214.0. With that said, too, I've also looked at this same exact formula, and I've applied that to our current dispatchers with this year's rate of pay, assuming that I had all 5 dispatchers. And that would basically be approximately $101.47 per call, which makes the per call volume for our own internal dispatching very expensive.
That's an estimate. You don't have the final say from the sheriff's department yet.
No, sir, I don't. And right now, it's costing us nothing. So they are dispatching for 12 hours a day. So from 6 to 6, being 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., they're handling our dispatches and are charging us $0.
The 5 dispatchers, I thought when he was up full speed, it took more than 5 dispatchers to run 24 hours a day.
Takes 5 dispatchers. And that would I only had to have 1 dispatcher working at a time. It's not like I would look at officers where it's a safety issue. So I need those 5, and then that would cover sick time, vacation time, training, and so on and so forth.
So 5 of them was costing us how much?
Last year's salaries, if I had 5 and everybody was up speed, it was for the hourly rate, not including the pickup, insurance, and HSA contributions. It was $173,908.80. Total benefit rate was $296,470.80.
Cost you almost 500,000.
$300,000, and that's including, so for the 5 staff members.
That includes your insurance and stuff at 296.
Yes, Mr. Block.
Understood you.
And then I did an increase of 5%, although we have no idea what the rates are going to be, but I wanted to look at what the maximum amount of a rate increase would be for 22. And if I was to look at a 5% increase on that $296,000 for next year, it'd be $306,000.
You're gonna retain two of them.
Potentially.
Uh,
Potentially.
You retain two of them, so you put that over there against the 60 grand.
Yeah, so roughly the total annual rate for a single person would be around almost $62,000. And then with central dispatching, $60,000. And then the addition of officers would be staged, meaning that I was initially proposed a Q2 hire, quarter 2 hire, and a quarter 4 hire in order to offset those costs.
So I thank you for the detail, Chief, very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lee.
Any other questions for?
That was all the conversations that we had in finance. I just wanted to put that out there. So I appreciate it.
Okay. Moving on, economic development met on October the 7th. It was updated last time. Well, next we'll meet on Thursday.
No, that
No.
has been canceled.
Okay,
Nothing new is going on right now, so
we are
decided to
canceling
cancel.
that. That's always good. Park and Rec met on the 14th of October. It was updated last time. It'll next meet on the 18th of November. And Tree Commission met on the 26th of October. It's scheduled to meet again in February. And Bailey, do you have anything from the Tree Commission for us?
It was the last regularly scheduled tree commission meeting of 2021. They met with a representative from an organization called 1500 Trees, whose goal is to plant 1500 trees within Licking County. It looks like the Tree Commission and 1500 Trees will be working together in the future to get some more trees planted in Johnstown. I updated them on the Arbor Day celebration, which went very well. The mayor was there. I also updated them on Tree City USA 2021. That application is due December 3rd. So I'll be working on that in the coming month. Marvin updated the commission on the trailhead parking lot trees, and the Tree Commission reviewed the tree preservation ordinance again that's currently tabled in council and provided more recommendations on changes and updates to that. It will be going to planning and zoning just for their review of those changes and for their recommendation as well. Am I missing anything, Marvin?
I think you hit it.
Questions for Bailey? Hearing none, thank you, Bailey. Events Committee met on October 26th also. Ben, anything from Events Committee?
Yeah, we are full on into the 4th of July 2022 fireworks conversations, which is great. Like I said, having more than like 8 weeks to put this all together for next year. So a lot of great ideas, a lot of the similar things from what we had that everybody enjoyed last year. Food trucks closer, more food trucks, 2 things, and we've already addressed those. So those are hopefully things that we'll have coming to fruition here. More entertainment. We're going to be talking about different types of entertainment for different age ranges. And then the funding piece is probably the biggest piece that we've taken on to try and see what we can do to fund this externally from fundraising efforts, sponsorships, things like that. So floating around of a lot of ideas, and we'll have some more conversations here. I think it's that first week of December is when we're going to get back together. But all good stuff.
Questions for Ben? Hearing none, thank you.
I would say if
Yes.
to add in here, because it's not on here, and maybe once a month, or I can remind you, Licking County Transit Board, I did attend that meeting on October 20th. They did have a meeting, which was good. They did approve their interim budget, which should be available. I have a copy if anybody wants to see it. But I'd say the biggest thing that came out of that meeting, and not prompted by anything from our side, is that the public comment was from a resident who was there that saw the front page advocate article about our mobility grant application, the Build Back Better grant. Was very pleased by it, very happy to see it, excited to see it. Transit Board bus, I think, was prominently featured on the front page there, and wanted to know how the Transit Board was going to be helping to facilitate that grant and the implementation. Very positively focused that grant was going to be coming through, but how the Transit Board was going to help with Johnstown and Jim Leonard and all of his great PR that's been out there behind this piece. But
They answer that question.
very excited.
They didn't know anything about it.
The Transit Board was very receptive of the positive feedback from the resident and sounded very encouraged that any conversation going forward, they'd be more than happy to continue to help facilitate being a part of that. So totally unprompted, but fantastic to be a witness there to that, because it was great. And then I would say really a good chunk of some of the other conversation that happened during the operations update and things like that went right back to Etch and the technology that they're bringing forth and wanting to utilize the Transit Board, some of those Transit Board buses as some platforms for testing out some of the technology that they're building, and the excitement that the Transit Board had about bringing that on and being a part of that process. And that it sounds as if Jim will be gracing their building in the coming weeks to do a presentation directly to the Transit Board about this mobility project. And I made it a point when given the opportunity to tout all the positive aspects of it. And really, at the end of the day, this comes through and we're able to meet all the goals that we have outlined and move on to that second stage and come to fruition, all those things that we put forth, how fundamentally transformational this whole entire piece could be for the region for generations to come. So I left encouraged and excited, and I hope everybody else did, at the very least, left informed about the amount of effort and energy that went into that, but how it could benefit that. But budget was passed, but that was probably the biggest piece that came out of that, was the mobility aspect of it. So just updating everybody on that.
Questions from council? If not, we'll move on. Next up are director reports. Jack, you're up.
Okay, as you all have the reports, I'll move through these relatively quickly, and obviously I can touch on any questions. We'll look at the street department first. 9 tons of asphalt was put down, and if you look at the graph on the next page, 120 hours to get that 9 tons down. I know that is a fall off from what we're wanting to do, but as you know, we are down a couple of employees in the street department trying to get those slots filled. Under miscellaneous work, I'm just going to touch on a few things. We've got the striping down on Post Office Alley, so we have a definition of the road area in Post Office Alley. We also have the summer class striping down at the corner of Ford and 62. So we can hopefully keep the cars scooted over and parked out of the roadway there. We also had, of course, the street department does the digging and working on our water line repairs. We are having a little run of them. We had a leak at College and Oregon Street, an old abandoned 2-inch line that blew out. We cut that off closer to the main, got that sealed off. And thank goodness that leak happened before we put the base coat and the paving down on that section. We're happy actually that leak happened then. We had a service leak at Jersey and Track that was also fixed. And as you folks know, I was late to the finance meeting because we had another leak over at Northview and Park Lane, which had a valve blow apart, a mainline valve blow apart over there. And the crew did an excellent job getting that put back together. If you look at just some of the pictures in here, you will see that the last of that concrete's put down on South Oregon. We've got the base coat and the intermediate coat down. And if all goes well, next Tuesday, the top coat will be going down on South Oregon Street. This week, they're backing up the new curbs with dirt and reseeding and reclamation in the yards. Got a picture here on the next page of the water tower. This says ring 18 of 19 is completed. 19 has now been put up and formed and should pour this week. The last picture here, Johnstown's going to experiment with brine this year. We have got a holding tank. We have also set up in Mike Guthridge and his crew has built a spray bar and everything. We're going to see how the use of brine reduces the actual use of salt. We're going to track that this year. How many gallons of brine versus tons of salt we have to put down and see how that works. Any questions on street department?
Questions for Jack?
We'll jump into the water department.
Cold.
What's that?
The water's cold.
It is cold. And that's the way we like it. You can see here, we produce 16, almost 17 million gallons in the water department. And if you look at the graph on the last page, you will see that our production is still tremendously higher than the previous 2 years, which has facilitated the expansion that we're working on the water plant. More training for the guys in there to keep their state certifications. They have to have so many hours of CEUs. And so they got another 7.5 hours of that training in. 2 of the men have already applied to the EPA for renewal of their certifications because they got their training hours in. And I think we only have 1 left there that I've got to get that done, but he's closing in on his hours. The daily plant tap results are there. They're very good. Councilman Lee has asked for a little more information on that. So what I want to do with this is give you ranges of where these should be within. It is a bunch of numbers to look at, but if you understand the range and where we're at, you'll see that we're actually where we want to be. The plant operators are doing a very good job. And again, I just mentioned that monthly influent, the production that we're pulling out of wells. That's very important for you guys to see where our production, how much it's risen over the last couple of years as justification for expansion at the water plant and at the well field. Any questions on water? Okay, we'll jump down to the sewer plant report. Again, makes me smile every time I go through this. Is, you know, I worked through there for years to see the efficiencies that these guys down at the sewer plant. You have a wonderful sewer plant crew down there. They maintain just great efficiencies down there. Everything 98, 99, 96% removal. Of course, a lot of that is due because we have the proper equipment down there for them to use. I'm going to jump over to the highlights page. I did get some questions. You know, we over at Benedict and Buena Vista, we have the lift station over there that was, the fencing was wood. And I know it was more aesthetically pleasing, but if you take a look at those pictures, and we've got a couple police reports, and the vandalism over there just got more than we could handle. They kicking the wood in and moving in. So we did take down all the wood fencing, and now we have a woven wire fence, which is going to be more substantial to keep the equipment protected. And you know, it was something we needed to do to protect the equipment and protect the individuals that were actually doing that, because I don't think they understand if they would open any of those pits, the depth they could fall. There's no way out. They're in. So again, it was a protection and to eliminate the vandalism. On the back page, again, you can take a look at the septic receiving. You know, we had some problems down there. We have recovered. We're back up over previous years for the month, and we did have some trouble with some equipment. It is getting old. We are looking at that in the expansion down there to replace it. We did not recover greatly on the bulk water hauling. As you can see, if you look earlier, we were really doing well on that earlier in the year, but again, that breakdown, bulk haulers found another place to haul from. I do feel confident that next spring we will see that recover. I am going to jump in real quick. Oh, first, any questions on the water? I'm going to just jump into the rest of our projects real quickly. As I said, the tower, we're getting close to having the pedestal completed. That's pretty exciting. The next step on that is the steel will be moving in. It's going to be welded on the ground, painted on the ground, and then raised to the top. That's not the whole tower top. It will be the base and the lower base when that happens. As most people know, Benedict, Univista, Upham, and North Oregon have all been milled and repaved. The job looks good. Starting next week, Tuesday or Wednesday, the storm sewer on North Oregon, the replacement of that storm sewer will begin. Trailhead Stone parking lot is scheduled to be paved this Friday, so that's a plus. And as I mentioned earlier, South Oregon, the paving for South Oregon should happen next Tuesday if the schedule holds. So we will finally get that completed and that road opened back up. Jim, have I forgot any
Oh, I'm sure you have, but
project?
no one knows if you have or haven't.
Okay, because it's a pretty lengthy list that we're going. Oh, I do remember one more, our new 16-inch sanitary relief sewer on Jersey Street to remove flooding on that sewer line during heavy rain events is completed. We're going through the final stages of approval, but the line has been put in operation.
Questions for Jack?
On anything?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Jim, are you making a report?
Yeah, I didn't have anything written. Honestly, when Teresa reminded me, I was too late, but a lot of my time's been catching up on things that were delayed during the grant application and then preparing for continuing that. We took a couple weeks off for our Friday meetings, but those will start back up here soon. So yeah, that's probably nothing specific, nothing huge other than the application was submitted. 526 other applications, well, 525 other applications were submitted. You know, I don't know. We'll see what happens. I don't have high hopes, but only because I'm optimistic, and then I'm really elated when we actually get the grant. So we'll see what happens. Any questions about anything over the last 30 days?
Questions for Jim?
I sure answer.
Okay, thank you. Now, we're gonna move to legislation. I understand that from Jim and Dana and that the ordinance 07-2021, they're ready to have a discussion about that. And so I would ask that if I could have a motion to take it off the table.
So moved.
Ben's moved it. Is there a second?
Second,
Cheryl has seconded. Teresa, you want to call the roll?
Yes. Finley,
Yes.
Cheryl Robertson.
yes.
Mayor Dutcher,
Yes.
Chair, oh, not sure. Carol Bendies.
Yes.
Doug Lehner,
Yes.
Robin Block.
Yes.
Okay. So we've taken it off the table and Jim, or Dana, I don't know who's going to talk.
I'll go over briefly some of the ideas, and then if specifics, Dana can hit them. So the biggest changes we've included the agreement with the police department is updated in here. We have included a zoning administrator. All that does is just put it in here. We're not hiring for that, but we figured we'd go ahead and do that instead of coming back. And then also clarified, or not clarified, increase the utility operator class 1. Bump that up a little bit to try and get people in the door to come, on their water and wastewater journey with us. And then probably the biggest one is increasing the utility laborer position, as well as adding a utility laborer with CDL, because there is value there. So you'll see a $1.50 difference between laborer and CDL laborer or distribution license with those. When we were putting this together, I actually saw the morning of our meeting, utility laborers in the city of Pataskala get $20 an hour. So we're not only competing with other municipalities, which has been the last 5 years, we're now with the labor market and the way it is, competing with everybody else, and need to be cognizant of that when we're looking to hire. So those are the big highlights, Jack. I don't, directors, if you had any additions or corrections that I may have misspoke.
No, that's correct, but the utility labor and the utility labor with CDL or distribution license, it's something we had to do. We're getting no applications,
Mhm.
0 applications, because when we were paying $16 an hour, which, you know, somebody that started here for $4.62 an hour, that sounds like a pretty decent wage. However, we can't compete with McDonald's or any warehouse. And when you think about those guys are called in at night, plowing snow, fixing water line repairs, and compare that if we're paying equal pay for someone that can work in a warehouse out of the weather, we just weren't getting any applications. So this move is, it's very important to us to try to get staffed up. As I told you in the earlier meeting, we are down 3 employees. We've had it on our village website. What would you say, Teresa, for 2 weeks now? 1 application. And we're not, you know, here again, you know, is that the application we want? You know, it's not a matter of just hiring, but hiring the type of employee that we would like to have working here.
So we'd recommend approval of this so we can try and get more employees. Yes, Marvin.
Has any of these been implemented yet? Any of these wages?
No, I believe one of the chief, correct me if I'm wrong, one of your patrol, was it the last patrol officer was hired at 2047?
Yes.
So yes, one officer was.
Before it was approved?
I'm sorry?
Before it was approved?
Yeah, the base salary, I don't know what the old ordinance was.
It was within the range of the old ordinance, though.
Yes.
It was in the range of the old ordinance, not the new one?
It was.
Yeah, the old one, 1650 to 2602.
And that's something we have to look at too, because so now that we're increasing the ranges, or not, the bottoms are now elevated. When we first started here, we only hired at the bottom, and then we kind of knew that was kind of going away. So we hired at the kind of a little, maybe a couple dollars more if they had skills that we were looking for. Now we got to look at what's the policy of bringing them. Are we going to revert back to that lower scale, or are we going to have to pay what we have to pay just to get qualified
Body.
candidates?
Yeah.
It's gonna be tough on all department heads because there's so many people out there paying more than we pay.
100%.
That's why we've adjusted the ranges several times over the last several years. And Marvin brought up a good point that I was going to point out, is that this doesn't necessarily give anybody a raise. It just gives us a wider range with which to hire based off of somebody's skills or the need in that position.
But what council will have to be aware of is, you know, if the department heads make a hire and it's budgeted at $14, $15 and we need to pay 18, there's a $3 difference that, you know, council has to be aware of, that we have to then, you have to appropriate.
Budget.
There's a balance on our director's part of
Mhm.
hiring good reputable people and then also staying within budget, if not having to come to finance and council to appropriate.
Didn't we have one person that was you? And the guy that was gonna quit you, and you kind of talked to him about what was going on and you give him.
Yeah,
a
I
raise?
went to Dana and Jim, and I think we even talked about it in council to see what we could do to
Keep
save
him, retain him.
as he very qualified and top-notch employee, and we did on an individual basis take care of keeping him.
It's like the police. If you get somebody and you paid for all their uniforms and stuff like that, you hate to lose them for $1 an hour.
Questions? Any further questions?
No.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the ordinance. Then we're gonna have a public, then I'll open it for the public hearing.
I'll move to approve.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. So now we can have a public hearing. So we're gonna open the public hearing. There's any comments from the public? If not, I will close the public hearing and we'll proceed to a vote. Discussion. Any further discussion from council?
I'll just say thank you to Dana for pulling it all together. Appreciate it.
Teresa, you want to call the roll?
Carol Robertson,
Yes.
Mayor Dutcher,
Yes.
Carol Van Diest,
Yes.
Doug Liner,
Yes.
Marvin Block,
Yes.
Ben Lee,
Yes.
Okay, the ordinance is approved. Next up, we're going to leave ordinance 34-2021 on the table. If that's agreeable to everybody. And we'll come back to it someday. I gotta make sure I didn't leave something out here. I think you left that one out of my.
Yes, that's not in.
Yeah, it's not in here. Okay, next up, ordinance 43-2021. Ordinance amending chapter 1121 of the city of Johnstown's codified ordinances. It's going to be introduced tonight and excuse me. So it's just introduction.
No, it's a public hearing.
We introduced it last time.
We did.
Oh, you're right. It was introduced on October 19th. I'm reading the wrong line here. And
It's late.
we're going to have a vote and a public hearing. So who's going to talk about this one?
I can.
Okay.
On October 5th, council passed an ordinance that conditionally allowed hotels in the GCC1 district. At that time, it was recommended that planning and zoning review the definition of hotels in section 1121 and make updates to that definition. So planning and zoning did that and has recommended that a definition for hotel be updated to better reflect the Ohio Revised Code, which defines hotels based on 5 numbers of rooms. And then planning and zoning has also recommended a new definition for transient accommodations to address the gap between with facilities between 0 to 4 rooms. So you will see that in the ordinance for an amendment to section 1121.
Any questions?
What's that transient?
Okay, if I could get a motion to approve the ordinance.
So move.
Is there a second? I'll second. Okay, so we're gonna have a public hearing. And so I'm gonna open a public hearing. I'm gonna, if I hear nobody from the public, I'm gonna close the public hearing. Questions and discussion from council on the merits of the ordinance.
I would just note that these definitions are in line with the definitions pulled higher rise code, but also with respect to the ordinance that will be forthcoming with respect to the bed tax. So these are all kind of
They're
playing
related.
playing together. Yeah.
Okay. So any further questions? If not, Teresa, you want to call the roll?
Mayor Dutcher,
Yes.
Carol Van Diest, Doug Liner,
Yes.
Marvin Block,
No.
Ben Lee,
Yes.
Cheryl Robertson.
Yes.
The ordinance is approved. Next up, ordinance 44-2021, an ordinance amending chapters 1155, 1157, 1167, 1169 of the city of Johnstown codified ordinances. And this is also relating on transient accommodation. And Bailey, do you want to talk about this one first?
Yes, so this relates back to the previous ordinance that you just voted on. And with those updated definitions, this ordinance would conditionally allow hotels and transient accommodations within general GCC1, GCC2, Village Center, and Village Commercial Districts. And this was also forwarded from Planning and Zoning.
Okay. Questions for Bailey? Tonight, we're gonna do a public hearing and a vote. So I would ask for somebody to move the ordinance in a second.
Okay, I so move. Ordinance 44, 2021.
I will second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Now we're gonna have a public hearing. So we'll open it for the public hearing. We'll close the public hearing. Questions from council or discussion?
I've got a comment.
Sure.
I think anything of this importance should have been advertised in a meeting instead of brought up under other business in the zoning meeting. This was brought up at the end of the meeting under other business. I think it should have been advertised when they put their meeting agenda out.
Okay. Anybody else? Hearing none. Teresa, you want to call the roll?
Yes. Carol Van Diest,
Yes.
Doug Liner,
Yes.
Marvin Block,
No,
Ben Lee,
Yes.
Cheryl Robertson.
Yes.
Mayor Dutcher.
Yes. The ordinance is approved. Next up is ordinance 45-2021, ordinance amending chapters 1142, 1143, 1145, 1147, 1149, and 1151 of the city of Johnstown's codified ordinances. This also is dealing with where hotels and transient accommodations would be allowed and where they would not be allowed.
Correct.
Bailey, you want to?
This ordinance strictly prohibits hotels and transient accommodations in all residential districts within the village of the city of Johnstown. That includes rural residential, SR1, SR2, UR1, UR2, and AR1 districts.
Okay. Tonight, we're gonna do a public hearing and a vote, so I would entertain a motion to approve the ordinance.
So moved.
Ben has moved it. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Cheryl has seconded. I'm gonna open up. We have to have a public hearing, of course, so we'll have open for the public hearing. Any discussion from the public? Hearing nobody, we will move on and I will close the public hearing. And discussion from council, questions? Hearing none. Teresa, you want to call the roll?
Doug Liner,
Yes.
Marvin Block,
no,
Ben Lee,
Yes.
Cheryl Robertson.
Yes.
Mayor Dutcher.
Yes.
Carol Van Diest.
Yes.
Okay, the ordinance is approved. Next up is resolution 2021-46. This is to set the resolution amending the established holiday schedule for which the Johnstown municipal offices will be closed for business. This basically is to take care of Friday, December 31st, which is the date when New Year's will be celebrated and is a federal holiday. So we're introducing it tonight. We're gonna have a public hearing and a vote. So I will entertain a motion to approve resolution 2021-46.
I move to go ahead and approve resolution 2021-46.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Doug seconds. Discussion. Well, first we'll have a public hearing. I keep forgetting that public hearing part. Anyhow, excuse me. I'll open the public hearing. What's that?
No,
No,
do not.
You can
we
amend
do
it.
not. Hearing no further public comment, we will close the public hearing. And discussion, comments, questions from council members.
Would we typically close the offices on the 31st? If it was like on a,
No, this was last year when I created this resolution. I didn't look 2 years ahead to see
Yeah.
when New Year's Day of 2022 was going to be. So it fell on a Saturday. I should have done it then, but the handbook says if a holiday falls on a Saturday, you should celebrate it on Friday.
Friday.
So
That's
I
fair.
made the adjustment.
On
this
Sunday, it's
I
on.
made the
Monday.
assumption that we'd be closed on the 3rd, but that's 6 and 1/2 dozen. the
can do
other.
that too.
Yeah,
It wouldn't
You can
object.
amend that.
right.
You can amend it however you want, but I was just following.
No, I was just curious. Yeah, follow the handbook. I think that's fair.
Any further questions? Any comments? If not, Teresa, you want to call the roll?
Marvin Block,
Yes,
Bentley,
Yes.
Carol Robertson,
Yes.
Ed Dutcher,
Yes,
Carol Van Dies.
Yes.
Doug Liner.
Yes.
the resolution is agreed to. Next up is resolution 2021-47, a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with local waste services to extend the current contract for the collection and disposal of residential refuse and garbage and to provide curbside collection of recyclables in the city of Johnstown. Tonight, we're going to do the introduction, the public hearing, and a vote. As you can remember, we had local waste come and make a presentation to us. We are still paying less, even with this new slight increase. Our residents will be paying less than all of those municipalities that surround us. And I think that's a good deal.
With recycling.
And with recycling as an added service. So I would ask that we move the resolution. Somebody could do that.
So moved.
Doug has moved it. Is there a second?
Second.
Marvin has seconded. We will do a public hearing. We'll ask anybody from the public want to comment. Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. Discussion from council members. Questions?
I don't know if anybody else paid much of attention or not, but that no fuel surcharge,
Yes,
that's a big deal for me.
yeah, yeah.
It is.
Mm.
I think we had to go back and search through the email to make sure that when we went through round one, because that was a little bit of a disputed item.
Yeah, I think the second version of the contract had it in there and then someone caught it maybe, and then Teresa found it.
It's taken out.
You're absolutely right, Marvin.
So if there's no further discussion, questions, Teresa, want to call the roll?
Bentley,
Yes.
Cheryl Robertson.
Yes.
Ed Dutcher,
Yes.
Carol Van Dies.
Yes.
Doug Liner,
Yes.
Marvin Block.
Yes.
Okay. Next up is, and this is, I guess, only an introduction tonight.
It's a resolution,
It's a resolution.
resolution 48.
Oh, yeah, 2021-48 resolution accepting ownership and maintenance responsibility for the Croton Road water line. Jack, are you talking
Yep.
about this
We'll
one?
take that. The 16-inch main that we ran out to New Day Farms is installed, completed. It has passed all walkthrough and inspection. As you know, it's been in operation for almost a year. It's a little short of that. So now that all the final inspections are taken care of, we're ready to accept that water line and start its 1-year maintenance contract.
Questions for Jack?
How in the hell did you walk through a 16-inch water line?
I run a camera through it.
Oh, okay. You said you done a walkthrough.
Well, I walked on top of it, run the camera through it.
Okay.
So we need somebody to move this
I so
resolution.
moved.
I'll second.
Is there, and we've been moved and seconded. We'll open it for a public hearing. Hearing no public comment, we will close the public hearing. Questions, comments from council members? Hearing none. Teresa, you want to call the roll?
Cheryl Robertson,
Yes.
Ed Dutcher,
Yes.
Carol Van Dies.
Yes.
Doug Liner,
Yes.
Marvin Block,
Yes.
Bentley.
Yes.
Okay. Next up is ordinance 46-2021, ordinance amending ordinance 34-20, annual appropriation ordinance of the city of Johnstown to approve necessary changes of appropriations. Dana? This is only for introduction tonight. And we'll do the public hearing and the vote on the 16th of November.
Yes, so this came out of Finance Committee on Monday. We had discussed usage of the ARPA funds, and Finance Committee had approved to give $1,000 bonus to every employee. So I went ahead and put together the ordinance to do that. And it does fall into the one of the categories that is allowed by to use these ARPA funds.
Okay. Any questions for Dana? If not, we'll see this again on the 16th. Thank you for your attention, and that concludes the legislative portion of our meeting. Next up is other business. Anybody have any other business? Ben?
Have we had any response back to our reaching out to our partners with respect to the Western Licking County Accord?
No, I haven't had any conversation. I do have a phone call with New Albany Company on Friday morning that they requested.
With respect to the Accord or something?
No, I think just in general.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna ask some probing questions and see what I can find out.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Another business? Okay. We now are going to go into another executive session to consider the employment of a public employee. And we're going to stay here. We're going to allow all of you to go. And
There'll be
who
no,
else?
no action after,
There's no action after. We will just adjourn.
and I'll just be with myself,
Is that
myself and council.
okay? It'll just be Jim.
I need a motion.
Oh.
Yes, somebody.
I'll make a motion to enter into executive session to consider the employment of a public employee with Village Council and Jim Leonard.
Second.
Mayor Dutcher,
Yes.
Carol Bandy,
Yes.
Doug Lehner,
Yes.
Marvin Block,
Yes.
Yes.
Ben Lee,
Yes.
Cheryl Robertson.
Yes.
Basically, just being would say.
Thank you all very much. Thanks for coming, everybody. Jim, thank you for your comments.